Good evening. My name is Brother Vernon, and I am a recovered addict. First, giving thanks to God for the breath of life, and then the gifts of sobriety, and extending a warm welcome to those that are new here in this room of Cocaine Anonymous. And I'd like to share with you that the 12-step idea that is outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous does work. I want to welcome the newcomer. I don't know how many people are here for their very first time, but it's my hope that you listen with a critical ear to what is being said, for it may have an impact on your life to change the course and direction of your life. I'd like to share with you that my sobriety date is July the 20th, 1987. For the last 30 years, God has seen fit to keep me sober in my right mind as I trudge this path of recovery. The idea of recovery is spiritual in nature. And what I mean by that, this idea of recovery only deals with two things: the human soul and the human spirit. It has nothing to do with the material things that most of us seek as a result of recovering from this disease of addiction. How it all started for me, as I exited out of the state penitentiary in January of 1987 from Folsom State Penitentiary, I had a plan that I had executed when I exited out of that penitentiary. My plan was to find a job, grooming dogs, being a productive member in society, seeing the parole officer as ordered, and doing something different. But something happened. As I got that job working in Norwalk grooming dogs, it was a hot summer day, and the thought came to mind, because there were so many dogs that we were grooming in that shop that day, that my mind told me it'd be nice to get a 40-ounce of Old English 800, sit in the back corner seat on the RTD bus, and go home. As I got the 40-ounce and went to that back seat, I made sure that I kept my eye on the rear view mirror so that the bus driver didn't see me turning the bottle up. But as I turned that bottle up and the alcohol went into my system, somehow or another, I deviated from going home and ended up back in the old neighborhood. And my alcoholism and drug addiction began all over. As the time passed, I found myself seeing my parole officer, but I found myself going to that parole office with 2 sweatshirts, some baggy pants, to camouflage my physique. Because when I got out, I was not this size. I was much bigger than this. But as a result of me drinking again and using, my anatomy began to deteriorate again. So I had this fear. The fear of being violated on my parole. So I did like some of the sponsors in the street taught me. They said, if you want to clean out your system before taking a test, drink some vinegar and water or some cranberry juice and flush out your system. I did that, but the parole officer never wanted to test me. So I continued to get loaded, and then when I saw him again, the fear came over me again that he may violate me because he's looking at me strangely like right now. And so what I did is while I was out there on my last run, I got summons to my mother's apartment. And she inquired about some things that came up missing off the dresser. And I did something that the big book talked about. I sent out this emotional appeal. I cried, I begged her to please believe me that I had nothing to do with what she thought that I had stolen out of that apartment, and she couldn't find it in her heart to believe me. And that devastated me, because I was literally in a fetal position as if I was in her womb as I cried. And when I got up off the floor, she said, "Boy, you need to get you some help." And my response, being under the influence, I said, "If anybody needs some help, you need to go and get you some help." And she looked at me with this estranged look, dropped her head, and walked out that bedroom. And there was no one in that room but me. And I heard this voice said, "How dare you speak to your mother in that manner? Here's a woman that fed you, clothed you, housed you, took care of you for 3 years, 7 months, and 13 days while your father was incarcerated himself. And you dare to stand up here and talk to her like that? You need help." And I responded to that voice. I had someone that was in treatment while I was incarcerated that was writing me letters. And it was my children's mother. And I said, "That's good. She needs to be in treatment." Anybody that drink Budweiser beer or smoke PCP every day need treatment. So I called her up and she gave me a number to a treatment center. And I went to that I called them up. They said they had 1 bed space. And if I wanted, I needed to get there fast as possible. I had no money, so I was on foot patrol, just like I was when I was in my disease getting loaded. And with all the desperation in me, I left walking from Century and San Pedro, headed to 108th and Wilmington. I got to Avalon in 103rd, and I saw some guys working street maintenance, and I asked one of them, did he have $1 so that I could catch the bus to that place. He gave me the $1. He was hesitant about doing it, but I got there. When I got there, they interviewed me. They asked me, was I an alcoholic? And I said, no. They said, well, you can't come up in here. And I said, yes, I am. And they let me in. Now, and I hope that you're not here to hear about me getting high, where I got high at, who I got high with, because that's not what I do. What I carry a message of hope and inspiration relating to this 12-step idea. But the reason being that I do this is because I found that most people that come to you and share their experience, strength, and hope, or either their experience, weakness, and despair, spend most of their time on a drunk-a-log or get high-a-log, and they never have time to share the message of recovery. So my drunk-a-log or get high-a-log is intertwined with the 12 steps of recovery. Now, I don't know how many people here have been in treatment before, more than one time, and they having difficulty with staying sober. I'm here to share with you that I found something that may help you even a whole lot more. They got a chapter in this book called More About Alcoholism. But I could also say, in changing alcoholism to cocaineism or drugism, and I can read it to you in the way that it's written in the book. And the way that it goes, it says, most of us have been unwilling to admit we are real alcoholics or addicts. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking or smoking career have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we can drink or use like normal people. The idea that somehow, someday, I'll be able to control and enjoy my drinking or using is the great obsession of every abnormal smoker or drinking. And the persistence of that illusion is so astonishing that many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Now, what would help you, I found, is if you put your name in the book and you read it with your name in the book. Because then the book will come alive. So it'll sound like this. Vernon have been unwilling to admit he is a real alcoholic or addict. Vernon likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that Vernon's drinking and using career has been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove he can drink and use like normal people. The idea that somehow, someday, Vernon will be able to control and enjoy his drinking and using is the great obsession of Vernon's mind. And the persistence of Vernon's illusions is so astonishing that Vernon will pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. So it gave me a warning. The warning was that if I buy into this lie, which is this illusion and delusion, that somehow, someday, I'm going to be able to control and enjoy my drinking or smoking, that I will pursue it into the gates of insanity. So I'm going to go insane first, and then death follows. What are we dealing with here? We're dealing with a disease that's fatal in nature. This disease is likened on to the disease of cancer. They have no cure for cancer. They have no cure for drug and alcohol addiction. All we have is treatment. That's it. And the treatment that we have is the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. So looking at this disease, it said that it affects me physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I came here in what you call triple darkness. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm looking for a way out, but there is no light at the end of my tunnel. Everything is dark. But as I get here, you introduce me to a light. It wasn't a Bud Light. It wasn't a Miller Light. It wasn't a flashlight. It wasn't a candlelight. It wasn't a cigarette light. And it wasn't a match light. It was the sunlight. The sunlight of truth, not lies. Because they say when you know the truth will not only set you free, it will make you free. So I got a disease that's physical, mental, and spiritual, but we have a program that is designed to treat the body, mind, and spirit. But you have to be consistent with being in all three in order to recover. I cannot just go to meetings and think that I'm going to stay sober, because that's only treating the physical aspect of my disease. My disease right now is arrested. It is in dormant. But what happened for me is that I did a forensic autopsy on my damn self in the spiritual sense, meaning that I took a step back and I looked at my physical body. Now, I had to see if I have this thing in me. I call it the thing. The thing is likened on to a parasite. It lives in the body as long as you keep feeding it. So as long as I got this thing in me and I'm feeding it drugs and alcohol, it's alive and active. But when it's sleep, arrested that is, then I got a better chance at not stealing your house, stealing your car, breaking into your apartment, stealing your jewelry, robbing you, jacking you, whatever it takes to get something, to get some more. So this thing is like, it's called an allergy. I'm allergic to drugs and alcohol. Even when I go to the hospital, I make sure I tell these doctors or these nurses that's trying to treat me that I am allergic to drugs and alcohol. Do not give me any medication that has alcohol or any mind and mood altering substance in it. Because if it do, I'm going to lose my sobriety and I'm going to also lose my mind again. Because I know what my disease do to me. See, my disease take me places that I had no plan on going. I never planned to go to the state penitentiary, but I went. I had a sponsor before I even got here. I had sponsors in the street. They taught me how to roll up my weed, separate the stems, take out the seeds, roll it up, light it, drag it, blow it out, and I got results. When they taught me how to hit the pipe, they gave me clear-cut instructions. They said, get you a pipe, get you some Brillo, get you some burner, which is 151, and get you a torch. And they showed me how to fix it. They showed me how to put it on. They showed me how to burn it. I drew it in, I blew it out, and I got results. I got that booyah effect. I had a sponsor that taught me before I went to the penitentiary. They said, we got a code of conduct when you go to the penitentiary. And if you follow this code of conduct, you got a good chance at getting out. But if you don't, you got a worse chance in losing your life. Now, the code of conduct was, you don't see nothing, you don't hear nothing, you don't know nothing, and don't you ask nobody for nothing. And I did just that. When I was incarcerated, none of the homies sent me a package. They didn't put no stamps on my books, no money on my books. They didn't send me no letters. They did nothing for me, but they was down for me, so they say. Even my family members sent me nothing. So I had to do with what I had. And what I had is I had a talent. God blessed me with a talent to draw pictures, portraits, make cards, write poetry. And I began to do this in exchange for cartons of cigarettes. And every time that I got a carton of cigarettes, I was able to go to you and ask you if you wanted to sell me some cup of noodles, some cans of oysters, some cans of tuna, and everything else that you need to make that spread. So I had a whole locker full of stuff where I didn't have to ask nobody for nothing. And I saw what happened to people that asked somebody for something. They would ask them, hey man, can I get one of them Snickers? Be like, yeah, homie, it's cool. You can get one. Don't trip. Not yet. But when that person wanted his Snickers back, he didn't want a Snickers. He said, I want some head in exchange for that Snickers. Or I want some ass in exchange for that Snickers. So that taught me a valuable lesson in not asking nobody for nothing. Because I'm not on that page. So thank God for the 12-step idea in bringing light to the darkness of my mind. If you don't never ever want to be incarcerated again, the first prison that you got to come out of, you got to come out of the prison of your own mind. I don't know if you anything like me, but I was out of ideas when I got to recovery. Out of ideas, meaning that I had no plans, no ideas on how I was going to get myself out of my condition. So I had to lend an ear and listen to someone else share their ideas with me. And their ideas came out of this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Their ideas was go to meetings, do 90 meetings in 90 days. Their idea was get you a sponsor, someone to sit down across the table with you and feed you this information in this book, line by line, word by word, and paragraph by paragraph. Their idea was to get a commitment and be of service some kind of way. And I started doing all of that, and my life began to start changing. One thing that I noticed in the big book is that the first instruction that it gave to the reader in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it asks you, it says, if you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause, stop. Read one of the 42 personal stories in the back of the book, and then think and ask yourself these questions. Did I feel like that? Did I think like that? And do I now believe that this program can work for me too? All the programs are inspirational stories that's in that book. And they will draw you into embracing this idea if you read it. Now, I'm here to share with you that from my viewpoint, what I need to be able to do is close my eyes and envision myself being clean and sober. And if I can see, because I got a photogenic mind, see myself being clean and sober, claim it. Once you claim it, then you work towards it. And as you work towards it, it will manifest in your being and you will become clean and sober. This idea leads me into the belief of a power greater than me. I know some of us got a problem with this God thing. And I'm in agreement with you, because I had a problem with it. I was brought up in the Catholic Church. Now the problem that I had with this God idea is that they told me that Jesus was the Son of God, right? But this man looked nothing like me. So it gave me the idea that if he looked like that, then his father looked close to him, because most children resemble their parents. So as I'm sitting in the Catholic Church, they're saying that when you pass away, some of you are going to heaven and some of you all are going to hell. Well, why is it that all the angels in the door that was adorning the walls in this Catholic Church were all Caucasian? Why is it that I didn't see no Hispanics, I didn't see no blacks, I didn't see no Asians or Chinese people on that ceiling, where they are saying that these people went to heaven? I had a problem. But when I got into the other book that the 12 steps was extracted from, it's called the Bible. Why would they give me a total different description of Jesus? Why would they tell me that his hair was like lamb's wool? His skin was a burner's brass, as if you burned it in the furnace. His eyes was fiery red aflame, like most of the people in the community's eyes were, smoking chronic. And why would they tell me that his voice is deep of many waters, meaning that it had bass in it, not alto or tenor? Why would they lie to me? So they told me around here that I can have my own conception of God. However inadequate it may be, it was sufficient enough for me to get results. So what I tapped into as a power greater than myself is what we call is electricity. Electricity. If you go home and you turn on your nearest lamp and the bulb lights up, unscrew the bulb before it gets hot, lick your finger, stick it in the socket. If that ain't a power greater than you, then you tell me what is. See, with just that simple concept and that simple willingness to believe that there is a power greater than me, I commence to get results around here. So I know that my Father, God that is universal. So I don't come in the room set tripping on what religious preference you are. You can be a Jehovah Witness, you can be a Baptist, you can be a Buddha, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be whatever else. Christian Scientology, all of that. I embrace it all because my Father's universal. And what he showed me, he says, if you remove the titles from all of those different religions you just made mention, Vernon, you can get to what undergirds the religion, which are called spiritual principles. And those same spiritual principles are here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when you embrace those spiritual principles, you become a united people instead of a divided people set tripping on titles. Some of us come in these rooms set tripping on titles of recovery. Oh, I'm with AA, I'm with CA, I'm with that NA. Set tripping. Just like we out there gang banging, huh? But I'm here to tell you that AA doesn't mean Alcoholics Anonymous. AA means attitude adjustment. Cocaine, CA don't mean Cocaine Anonymous. It means change of attitude. NA is not Narcotics Anonymous. It's a new attitude. Everything is rooted in my attitude, which is a manner, a position, and a disposition in which I view a thing or a person. So I don't know what your view of me is right now, and it really don't matter because your view of me no longer dominates me today. Your thoughts do not dominate me today. Your feelings do not dominate me today. It's how I see myself, what I think about myself, and how I feel about myself that moves me today. Because I was lost into other people and being accepted. How you feel about me, what you think about me, I'm not with all of that. See, I've been given a foundation to stand on where I know who I am. I'm not V-Dog today. I'm not my nigga. I'm not what's up homie. I'm not what's up dude. My name is Brother Vernon. See, that's who I am. I am a man. A man is one that sees what needs to be done and he gets it done. He don't make no excuses. See, I'm not just a donor of sperm where I produce children, but I don't take the responsibility of them. That's not who I am. See? I became a man in these rooms, but I live like a savage out there. Like you see some of our people out there, they're living like savages, uncivilized, unnurtured, uncultivated, and undeveloped. Yeah, they lost their way. We don't know why they lost their way. They probably lost it to drugs and alcohol. They probably lost it because they lost a family member. They probably lost it because they lost their job. They probably lost it because they lost a loved one. I don't know why they out there. But for some unknown reason, most of my people that I see out here have found it comfortable being beneath zero. I'm not comfortable at zero. But I came in here at zero. You introduced me to the one God and said, line your zero self up behind the one God. And when you do that, you will have value. Because 1 and 0 is 10. And 10 in Roman numerals is the X, right? Well, they tell me in here on page 18, but the ex-problem drinker. That means that he's been X out of that mentality of drinking and using, and he's no longer drinking and using. He's X out of that mindset of being an ex-con, an ex-felon, an ex-thief, an ex-tramp, an ex-slut, an ex-bitch, an ex-nigger, an ex-dog, an ex... Why? Why is he X'd out of that mindset? Because he looked at his experience and he examined it. And he exchanged his old ideas for new ones. And he allowed God to excel him in life. And as God excels you in life, he also exalts you, raises you up in life. And then he fashions you as an example in life of himself, which is the expert. But you got to get your X in your head. So I'm Brother X. If you're looking for heaven and you're looking for hell, those are just two conditions of life. But they both live right here on this earth. Well, how is it that I'm in hell on earth? Have you ever been broke as hell? Have you ever been lonely as hell? Have you ever been sad as hell? Have you ever been negative as hell? Have you ever been jealous as hell? Have you ever been envious as hell? Then you're in hell. But when you rise above that, you find yourself in heaven, where you're not lonely, you have a companion or a significant other. Where you're not sad as hell, you happy. Huh? You feel joyous and you feel free. Huh? When you're not broke, you got some money in your pocket. Huh? When you're not negative, you're positive. Where you're not jealous or envious is because you want for your brother what you want for yourself. Huh? That's the medication that comes from this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. They say this is our medication. And if you take it as prescribed, that's why they got the steps in order, 1 through 12. They didn't take them out of text. They said if you do them in this exact order, then you'll get the results. But if you do them your way, you might get some other results that you had no dreams of ever getting. Like when you go back and make amends to people. And you go and tell them early on in your recovery, you ain't even been in the steps. Oh, I'm sorry for stealing your money. I don't want to hear that shit. That's what they tell you. I don't want to hear that. Where my money at? But I'm going to tell you, I'm one that went back and made amends properly. I recently, and I'm going to share this experience with you. After going through the 12 steps of recovery, I got to the place to make amends, right? Where I had to go back and reconcile my differences with people that was resentful or angry towards me from stuff that I did to them. Well, here's what God led me to do. Recently, I went out to Orange County. Now, in Orange County is where I caught my robbery in Brainerd Park before I went to the state penitentiary. But I went back there to get my record from the court building so that I could get an expungement on my record so that I can now be able to go back in San Diego to visit my son who is in prison doing 2 25 to life sentences consecutively. I get my record and I'm looking at the paperwork and they got the judge's name on there. So God says, see if the judge is still sitting on the bench. I looked and I requested to find out if he was on the bench, and he was no longer on the bench, so I can't make amends to him. So he said, see if you got that public pretender they call himself representing you. He's no longer working. So I I'm out of making amends there. So I leave and I get in my car and he says, why don't you go back to that supermarket that you robbed and make amends to them? So I go back to the Albertson supermarket and I ask for the manager. And she happened to come out and I said, ma'am, I said, my name is Brother Vernon and I've been involved in recovery for the last 30 years. And a part of my recovery is that I had to do an inventory on myself. And in my inventory, I saw some harm that I caused this establishment. Back in 1986, I came in here with another person who I have to keep anonymous, and we robbed the store. Can you tell me, is there any other harm that I'm not clear on that I have caused? She says, yeah. You probably terrorized the clerk and all the people in the store. I said, well, ma'am, they got us outside the store, so I don't think I affected the other customers in the store. But as far as for the teller, I'm quite sure she was scared. So then she said, so then I asked her, I said, well, is there any other harm that I'm not clear on that I have caused? And she says, yeah, well, like I said before, you terrorized our clerk. You probably put fear in the customers. And so she called this other manager over and said, come here. This guy right here, he wants to ask, how does it feel to be in the store to get robbed? He said, this is one of our greatest fears that we have, getting robbed. Although we don't keep all the money in the registers, we keep it in the safe. Now, he didn't volunteer some extra information that I didn't even request. But however, so I went on and I asked the lady, I said, ma'am, I said, okay, I need to ask you another question. She said, what is it? I said, can I be forgiven? She said, sure you can. I said, well, ma'am, I got one last question to ask you. What is it that I can do to make things right? She says, keep doing what you're doing. Be that productive member in society and start treating people like you wanted to be treated. And I said, thank you so very much, and you have a nice day. And I walked out of there a free man. But it didn't stop there. Because you know what God sent me to? Buena Park Police Department. I go there to speak to the sergeant. The sergeant's out somewhere. So I'm talking to one of the little cadets. And she said, how may I help you? I said, I'm here to make an amends. And amends, what's that? I said, I don't need to talk to you. I see you ain't even on my page. So I went and spoke to another cadet, and he said, how can I help you? And I said, I want to speak to the lieutenant or sergeant or somebody here. He says, well, they're out in the field right now, and they're dealing with something else. But what I can do, I can give you the sergeant's number to the detectives division. And you can give him a call later on because he's not at his desk right now. So I get in my car, and I call him up on the phone. It go to voicemail. I leave a message for him to call me back. While I'm out and about, now God then led me to a meeting because that's what I do. Whatever city I go into, if it's time for a meeting, I'm going to try to get there. So I get to this meeting, find out when I leave the meeting that the sergeant had called me back. And I called him back on the phone and he answered this time. And I said, my name is Vernon and I would like to speak with you and I would like to make an amends for something from my past. And he sat there and he listened to what I had to say and he was elated, man. He couldn't believe it. But he really showed his appreciation for what I was doing, for how I was standing up for myself today and being a different man, you know. And so after I made that amends to him, it was a glorious day, you know. And this is what I get to do on a regular basis because I want to be free in my soul. I want to be free in my spirit. I don't want to have to do like they say in the big book where some of us are fitted by fixed ideas, superstitions, and traditions. The fixed idea that most of us probably had, like I had prior to getting here, I had a fixed idea that every time something happens or every time I feel a certain way, I got to get a hit or I got to get a drink. I got to get a hit, I got to get a drink. If I got to go to court, I'm going to get a drink or a hit before I go to court because they might keep me. That's what my head told me. If someone passed, I got to get a hit or a drink. If I lose my job, I got to get a hit or a drink. If I'm broke, I got to go and steal something to get a hit and a drink. That's a fixed idea. Now, the superstitions that they talk about is these superstitions that if you see a black cat, you're going to have bad luck. If you walk on the ladder, you're going to have bad luck. If you crack a mirror, you're going to have 7 years bad luck. I can't be running around for 7 years looking over my shoulder for bad luck to catch up with me. That's out. And then they talk about those traditions. The traditions that they speak of, or for me, is traditional holidays that most of us are fixed to. Where every time that a holiday come up, we got to go and spend all of this money to get high, to get this, to get that. I can't be a slave to that today. I haven't been a slave to Santa Claus and Christmas for the last 30 years because I found out that Christmas is a big ass lie. And I can't pass on the lie to my children. I got to tell them the truth. There's no such thing as Santa Claus. Santa Claus, to me, he's a pervert. That's for me. Sitting at the beach with his Sandy Claus up under the sand, trying to mess with little girls because he wanted them to sit in his lap. I'm not with him. And I shared with somebody else. I came up in an apartment building. We didn't have no chimney in my apartment building. So I know he didn't come past the fire because most of the times in the wintertime, it's a fire burning. How is he getting past the fire and laying gifts up under my tree? That's a big ass lie. Maybe my parents left the key under the doormat or something. I don't know. But I found out that they were the ones that was playing Santa Claus. See? So I can't pass on lies like that to people. I got to tell them the truth regardless if they want it or not. So I don't know what it's going to take for you to recover around here, but I can tell you one thing. Drugs and alcohol will kick your ass and make you sweetly reasonable. It will inform you that it is here to sentence you or me to death. It's a cold thing when I get out of my disease, how my disease always want to visit me here and there when I'm listening to the oldies or something. It's trying to take me back in time to where I was having good time and trying to suck me in to the lie again that I can recapture that moment, but I'll never recapture it again. It's just like drinking and using. The first effect that I ever felt from drugs and alcohol was the only time that I was going to feel that effect. Because I had been chasing that same effect over and over and over again and never recaptured it. So I spent a high price to end up with a low life. I don't ever want to live like that again. So if you be new, old or in between, we just suggest that you keep coming back. We suggest that you consider the information. We ain't telling you you got to believe it, but just consider it. But if you believe it, embrace it. If you believe it, carry your belief into action, because belief alone means nothing unless you carry that belief into practice. So I'm going to end with this. If I said anything that offended anybody out here, don't be mad at me. Be mad at God, because he gave me the truth to speak. And like they say, truth is like a rock. If you take a rock and you throw it into a pack of people, the only person that's going to holler is the one that got hit. Yes. So I sure hope that you don't holler after I'm all done, said and done. But if you want what we have, you must do what we do. You know, God will bless you with everything that your heart can desire. But the main thing is that desire to recover from this disease of addiction. We do this one day at a time because that's all that we have. I learned to live in the here and now. I don't live forever, or I don't live for the future because I don't know what lies there, but God does. So I'm going to keep coming back. I pray that you do. I pray that you benefited from the message tonight. And I want to thank the secretary for also inviting me out. And may God continue to bless you as he has blessed me one day at a time. Keep coming back. Thank you for letting me share.